Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome to 90 Day Fiancé latest news. After everything he had experienced, Pedro Jimeno never thought life would ever get him to this point. The world had seen him suffer, bear the burden of expectations, familial responsibilities, heartache, and arduous labor that rarely brought true serenity. For months, perhaps years, he moved as if he had learnt to live by staying motionless, content with the possibility that true happiness would not be in his future. The sea then arrived, as well as the dawn, and the woman who, without ever expecting anything in return, would tenderly put the broken parts of his heart back in their proper places. Between the roaring waves of that obscure coastline, it all began softly like a whisper. He had gone there to get some fresh air and to escape the life that had devolved into a tangle of obligations and quiet. He had no one he was looking for. He had no desire for love. All he wanted, in the slightest, was to recall what it was like to be at peace. However, there are instances when fate shows up without warning and takes the form of a person who smiles, as if they have known your soul for a long time before you have even shared your name. A little wind blew through her hair as she stood barefoot at the water's edge. Her gaze focused on the far horizon, as if she were listening to something that only she could hear. And Pedro and her exchanged an unspoken message when he spotted her. Not ostentatious or theatrical, just recognizable, as though they had stopped in the middle of their individual travels and realized that the other person shared the same silent kind of need. They gave each other a brief but courteous greeting. A few words, nothing more. However, he became aware that something had changed deep within his chest later that day when he was still reflecting on how her grin illuminated the situation. Weeks passed. Once more their paths crossed, intentionally at first, then accidentally. Coffee in a tiny cafe hidden behind jacaranda trees in bloom. Long strolls around streets covered with petals. Talks that began lightly and gradually became more in-depth, as if their hearts had silently agreed to unfold slowly rather than quickly. She did not inquire about his history. She occasionally caught a glimpse of the gravity in his reflective silences, but she never pushed explanations. Rather, she shared her own tales of tenderness and silent tenacity, which facilitated Pedro's gradual disclosure of his own. They shared fantasies they had buried and childhood recollections one evening while sitting beneath a starry sky. She simply reached out and held his hand as he confessed that he had nearly given up on ever finding someone who would actually notice him. There were no big gestures or promises, just a gentle, steady touch that said, "I am here." Pedro believed that perhaps it was safe to believe again for the first time in a long time. They quickly made the beach their secret location. It was a peaceful stretch of sand where the ocean whispered to those who listened, not the busy coastline where visitors congregated. Walking barefoot on the soft sand while birds flew low over the ocean, they would arrive in the cool pink glow of the early morning. At times they conversed, and at other times they just stood side by side and allowed the quiet to fall naturally between them. Every look, grin, and brief moment spent together under the open sky started to combine to create something stunning and indisputable. Pedro softly reached for her hand one morning as the sun was setting in a burst of rose and gold. In that instant, everything became evident as she turned to face him with a look that contained both a question and an answer. The world vanished. The sound of the waves drowned out the clamor, the judgment, and the past. As if expressing gratitude to the cosmos for bringing him to this unexpected shore, he closed his eyes, raised her hand to his breast, and gently kissed her fingers. These exact moments, the sensitivity in his look, the unforced softness of his grin, the way their hands fit together perfectly, were caught in the pictures that eventually surfaced on Instagram. Longtime followers of his journey responded with a flurry of astonishment and happiness. Remarks like, "Look at him," finally happy came in. "This is real, you can see it in his eyes." "It is great that she is mending him." Beyond the public response, however, lay a secret, one that existed only in the pauses between their clasped hands and the hushed chatter by the river. He had softly, carefully, and thoroughly fallen in love. He had fallen in love, not with the concept of love, but with the sense of unambiguous understanding. The nights grew gentler. Evenings continued into shared dinners and soft laughing, their voices blending with the distant sound of the waves. She started penning little messages of optimism in the pages of the books he kept next to his bed, in precise, deliberate handwriting. and he would read one every morning before going out into the world, grinning to himself a little as he felt the quiet assurance of her presence, even if she was not there. He was never in a hurry, perhaps because he now realized that love was something you protected rather than something you sought. He therefore carefully guarded those moments, keeping them near as if he were worried that they could vanish if the world took too much notice of them. Once more, however, fate had other ideas. While strolling along the water's edge one afternoon, a light rain started to fall. It was warm and delicate like summer tears, neither heavy nor chilly. They stood motionless rather than fleeing for cover. He mumbled something no one else could hear while brushing a lock of damp hair out of her face. Through the rain, she grinned and moved closer, pressing her forehead to his. They both realized in that brittle, rain-soaked instant that this was home. It made no difference where they were in the world or their past experiences. Here, in their arms, in their silent breaths, in the way their hearts pounded a bit quicker each time their gazes locked, was the true home. Later that day, cameras caught that as well, producing a second set of images that went viral on social media. No drama, not rumors, but a real, unadulterated connection. A man who had endured a great deal of pain at last letting himself believe in love once more. A woman who tenderly loved him enough to mend the pieces of him that no one else could see. Together, they established an environment where their histories served as the foundation for their strength rather than defining them. When everything was silent at night, Pedro would occasionally turn to face her as she fell asleep and just observe the rise and fall of her breathing. In such moments, he never said it out, but the words were clearly visible in his eyes. "Thank you for finding me." And when she opened her eyes in the morning and saw him observing her with that gentle, cautious look, she would smile in a way that made all the broken pieces of his past seem worthwhile, because they had all brought him to this point. They still keep the beach a secret. There are moments when it is ablaze with brightness, and other times when distant thunder and wind whispers reverberate. However, they walk hand in hand, hearts at ease regardless of the weather. They no longer have to talk to break the ice. The act of silence itself has evolved into another means of expressing affection. Furthermore, they are not two individuals fleeing from something as they stand at the water's edge, the waves lapping softly at their feet. Two individuals are moving in the direction of something tangible, enduring, and subtly remarkable. Perhaps this is the reason why people cannot turn away. For this is not merely a tale of love. It serves as a reminder that just when we believe we have forgotten how, the heart can occasionally find its way back to happiness. A reminder that we might not have looked in unexpected places for real love. And a reminder that by remaining motionless long enough for love to reach them, even the most weary soul can find serenity once more. This gossip is over. If you like the video, then give your opinion in the comment box and stay with us by subscribing the channel. Thank you.